Would you know about that?
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't know.
Well, hey, cheers.
Cheers.
Delicious Pinot, by the way.
Check you out.
I mean, it is, right? It's very good. What is it?
Oh, gosh darn it. I forgot. But I become this Pinot guy, who I never was, down at Scorpion Bay with Dennis Choate. Him and his lady friend, that's all they drink down there. And I just kind of pushed it off a couple times. I said, but I tried it, and I thought, well, okay, I like this.
It's very good.
Yeah.
This one in particular is really good. You want to look at the bottle real quick?
Yeah, stand by.
Okay, cool.
What I really liked was the Dow Pinot.
Oh, yeah.
But they stopped producing that. I think they're revintaging it.
Okay.
So this was the one that was supposed to take the place, Juggernaut.
Never had it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's
Russian River Valley, though.
yeah.
Little bit of wine nerd knowledge for you. The Russian River Valley obviously is in Sonoma County.
Yep.
A master sommelier once told me that there's more diversity in soil types in the Russian River Valley alone than there is in the entire country of France.
Really?
If you can imagine that. And so it's this ecological wonder, the Russian River Valley. And like fishermen know that apparently. Like if you fish this bend in the river, it's a different type than that bend in the river. And just like a tremendous amount of diversity in a very, very tiny area. So they grow not only amazing, wine, but Pinot Noir, Zinfandel, Cabernet, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, like all sorts of varieties just in this tiny space.
That was a lot of wine nerding going on.
Sorry.
There for a second. No, it's all good. Got to be educated.
Wine.
So what do you know about this? When I'm in France shaping, I work at UWL.
Yeah.
And I drink the Bordeaux, and I get a stomachache. They say it's from the soil. What do you know about that?
I know nothing about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's weird. Usually it's the opposite. People say that they get not a stomachache, but like a headache from wines that are imported because they have to add sulfites for preservation purposes, for the shipping. Mm-hmm. So like the exact same wine they get in France, no problem. And then you buy that wine here and they have a headache or whatever it is. So I've heard that, but I don't know about what you're experiencing.
Yeah, Gotham, one of the guys who runs production at UWL, he brought me a bottle from España, and geez, that was just incredible.
That didn't bother you?
Not at all.
Weird.
Yeah.
So it's just
probably
Bordeaux.
Just me.
Could be a volume issue too.
No.
Is it the second bottle that hurts worse than the first?
No. I go there to work, not to
I see.
Party like it's 1999.
Well, do you know when the last time we recorded a podcast was?
Whew. I think it was before COVID. I think it was before COVID.
We did one before COVID, but last one was May 2021.
2021, yeah.
During the boom of the surfboard business.
Yeah, that was a boom, wasn't it? Was it a boom or a bomb?
Well, great question. What's going on now? What's transpired since then is the question.
Nothing's really changed for me because my production is so low. I mean, it's not even been a blip on my radar.
Really?
I only produce 2 boards a week, and so I'm booked out a long ways ahead. It doesn't take that many boards to get booked out 6 months, 50 boards, and you're out there 6 months.
Yeah.
But I see blood in the streets everywhere I go, man. Everybody I talk to, people are losing factories. And
you've been building boards for 50 years?
October, next month.
It'll be 50 next month?
Yeah.
Do you have a date, like an actual day in October that you can pin down?
I don't remember that far back,
Okay.
but I know it was in October.
So in 50 years, have you ever seen what we're experiencing now?
Well, yes and no. This was this boom was because of COVID. That's no secret. But anybody who used COVID as a business model just got beat up because it was not going to last. The free money from the government, the staying at home from work and have nothing to do but go to the beach. There was no structured sports at school for kids, so everybody went surfing. So, I mean, as long as you stayed the course, I know it's hard to do that in the surf industry because it's either feast or famine. Yeah. If people want 100 boards from you, your knee-jerk reaction is, I got to build these 100 boards at any way I can. Yeah. However, I didn't, but I was okay. But again, my production is so low, it's so inconsequential. But I think, and also I noticed that there was a lot of people that came into the business during that. A lot of people making their own label. Everybody wanted to build their own surfboard because the glass shops I was working at, they
the
had
guard dogs are activated.
Those crazy dogs.
They sound vicious, actually.
Right?
They do. The glass shops.
I saw boards coming through there with names I didn't recognize, and that's natural progression because if you think back to '72, that was kind of where most of all of us my age got started, was in the backyard, and it really the big producers, Weber, Bing, I mean, pick one. They couldn't slow the machine down fast enough, and everybody went. A lot of people went to the backyard and it's kind of just a whole new thing, 50 years later.
I hadn't even thought about that segment of the market as it relates to COVID, but you're right. If everybody has time off, then they want to try something new, starting shipping surfboards. And you can buy blanks and all the materials now, easy. Right, you can even get the board cut.
And you can get it glassed with a quality color glass job.
Yeah.
That really makes it tough for, and we've discussed this many times, if all the groovy glass shops go away and the machine goes away, I'm still got a business. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is fortunate like I am to have learned it from the ground up, to where I can sand better than probably most of the sanders who have worked with me through the years, and all of it. But with that being said, you don't have to have any real skill to build surfboards right now. You, like you said, you can go get a cut. Yeah. They have files. You want this? Bam, there it is.
Right.
Scrub it out. 30 minutes later, take it to a groovy glass shop, and you're in business, man.
Yeah. Well, probably not much of a business, but you can certainly build boards, and that cuts into other board builders'
You'd
business.
be surprised how easy it is to start a business just with your friends. You build one board, and you hand it off to a friend. They ride it, and then they'll hand it off to a friend. Then their friend wants one. And because I found through my career that people want to come to the guy. Mm. They don't want to call a phone number and talk to a 16-year-old kid about any label. They want to talk to the guy.
Yeah.
And I made a career out of that of repeat business, that people were able to reach me on the phone.
Yeah.
And I talked to them. But again, my business was never, through my whole career, I mean, at one time we were doing 1,500 boards a year. We had 6 employees, and I had this saying that don't build more boards in the morning than your employees can screw up in the afternoon. And it was true. I ended up fixing more stuff.
Really?
Yeah, because at that time when I was building that amount of boards, I was the Blue Hawaii licensee. I was the Dewey Weber licensee. I was building my own country labels. I was building the Bear label with Randy Rarick. And these were all high-end boards.
Yeah.
There was no, in the late 80s, early 90s, there wasn't a lot of glass shops doing color work, lap color work. Mm-hmm. There was mostly airbrush or clear.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard to train people at that level. You know, the best time to train somebody was in the 90s. The 6-foot sand finishes. You could screw those things up, and you couldn't make enough of them.
Right.
If that was your market.
Right.
But at least people got used to working with the resin and the at least that's where I saw it. I tried to bring people in and show them how I do it, and it just never really took. I'm more really type A, to where I can't count on my hand how many times somebody would tell me it's just a surfboard. Well, that's true, but not really. It's my baby that I've brought to life that I want a certain way. And if you can't help me do that, then there's another shop right down the street you can go find a job at. I'm positive.
Do you, what's it like now? What's the labor market like now for people coming up? I mean, obviously we're talking about people who are coming up that want to shortcut everything and get the board cut and just have their label on their name on a surfboard. But are there actual people coming up wanting to learn the craft itself to kind of backfill all the people who are retiring or getting out of the business?
I don't have that. I don't see that because I'm not around it, but where I work in Oceanside, I watch guys like Michael Takayama just blow my mind with his work. That guy has got some real talent. He does some color work and pen lines that I just shake my head going, man, you don't want to do anything other than pen line for 2 days, because that's what it takes to do that.
Crazy.
And
I see him on Instagram. His boards are insane.
His boards are incredible.
Yeah.
And obviously they work well because he wouldn't have... Surfboards is a repeat business. If your boards don't work, you're not going to be in business more than 5 years.
Yeah.
You're going to be gone. But to continue with that, Wes Holderman's down there. I look at these guys, they're all doing color work. And it's really good. Mm-hmm. And all of them, Tim Crozier, all of them, and that's just in my little area down there. And I know the guys at Waterman's and Moonlight and places like that. Yeah, everybody's doing color work. Mangelli, especially. Let me back up for a second. John Mangelli is the modern day Gary Stuber in my eyes. Really? I always considered Gary absolutely the top of the heap as far as mixing colors and hitting those colors every time, and the cut laps were perfect. John Mangelli is that guy. Really? Yeah. He can make the colors perfect every time. And cut lap. I worked over there for, I think, 10 months with him, and what a class act. I'll tell you, anybody, and I don't do this for anybody, but anybody looking for a quality glass job, John Mangelli is right there at the top of the heap as far as color work, and just a gentleman and a great surfer. I took him to Scorpion Bay with me, May. I took him and Chris Hall, a younger shaper, both the guys from South Bay. Just great guys, man. A lot of fun to be around.
Whose boards is he laminating?
He does his own, and he does... there's a South Bay guy from El Porto, Matt Pagan. I saw his boards in there. They look really nice. He does, yeah. Everything that came through there just...
Matt was like a pro-level surfer.
Yeah, I seen him on Instagram.
Yeah.
I only met him a couple times. I saw him come through the shop, but he does... God, I'm so bad with names. Well, Chris Hall especially, and then... Yeah. And a couple of the other guys, but and the work is again. I probably went too much on it, but it's a hats off to him. I wish I could still do that.
Well, that's why I asked you the question though of like who's coming up, is because
these guys. Yeah. But I don't know how hard it is to train somebody nowadays to do that. I mean, that's got to be a tough deal.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it comes down to what does a job pay? You know, like when a kid comes out of high school or college, and they have different career options, money is a part of that. And so very few people are going to do it for passion without a paycheck. And so board pricing is really what needs to adjust in order to justify to entice people to get into the business. Yeah. And so like I understand the people who want to be Instagram famous and just have their name on the board, like that is a vanity project that maybe it doesn't translate into an actual business. But if we want to have kids doing the color work that you're talking about, or the next generation of people doing that in America, you know, like where a lot of this was pioneered in California, actually, then boards probably need to be priced $2,500, you know?
They do. And some of them are. Dane Peterson's another one out of that factory over there. Class act.
Yeah.
No, it pays garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone over this. I got paid $10 to sand a board in 1974. And I had a house on the North Shore for $350 a month.
What does that job pay now?
Probably less than 30 or maybe 30 or I don't know.
Okay.
But that house on the North Shore doesn't exist.
Right.
If it did, it'd be $5,000 or $10,000 a month now.
For sure.
But my point is that you can only charge what people will pay and what your name will carry.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's some glass shops that don't charge enough. I heard recently there was some rumblings about people raising their prices during COVID, and now people are unhappy about it. Well, probably the people who are unhappy about it have an office job where they make $400,000 a year and have a private secretary. So they're not standing on their feet all day, you know, sucking in, you know, styrene martinis and on your feet for 10 hours trying to make a living.
Yeah.
And so is it really too expensive? No. Come on. I'll walk around with me for fucking 8 hours in the glass and when I'm laminating and then tell me I'm overpaid.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would tell you, but it is what you said. It's whatever the market will bear.
Sure.
And during COVID, when everybody had more work than they could do, prices, I think, did go up for certainly like the premium quality products I saw. Yeah. So are those people going to maintain that price level as things go through the dip is really the question, or will they lower price to try to get a tiny bit of market share back?
Well, there might be a dip in the economy. There's no dip in the oil. And resin is a product of the oil companies. And so materials aren't coming down. So where are we going to trim the fat?
Right.
We're going to take it out of the guy's pocket?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I mean, you can't save it on material. Not now.
Shipping costs. I mean, gas pricing now is out of control. Like that hasn't come down at all. It's only gone up. So that all gets factored in too because that resin's coming from somewhere.
I can ship a board airport to airport from Santa Ana to Hawaii or back and forth for $100.
No way.
You try to ship a board by truck up the coast, it's going to be $300-400.
Crazy.
It is the craziest thing. But then, you know, you got gas. I filled up this morning. I have a diesel, and it was just under $6 a gallon.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I saw it looking, it was almost $7 a gallon. I think yesterday I was in San Diego, and it was like $6.99. It hadn't quite clicked over to $7 for unleaded, though, not diesel.
It's funny how you get when you're 68 years old, you kind of start looking at gas stations. Oh, it's 30 cents cheaper over here. Because I don't have a fixed income, but I do have a fixed income because I really don't want to work that hard anymore.
Yeah.
I got Social Security because I worked my whole life, and I made some good choices financially, so I'm fine. But
well,
it's got to be tough for younger people right now.
I want to get into some of those financial choices later in my notes, but I want to talk about the boardroom show because that's coming up in 2 weeks, and I want to kind of open the show with that to entice people to come and attend. You are competing once again in the Icons of Foam.
I came out of retirement.
Officially retired?
No, I retired from being a shaper in the Icons. I think Bass retired me.
Oh, okay.
I'd been in, I think, 5 or 6 of the things. I think Ward Coffee might have been in more than me, but I became the head judge for Pat Rawson and Timmy Patterson, which was really an honor because working with those two guys was really, really neat because they're such perfectionists and out of the box channels and crazy. But I started with Pat. I went to Pat and said, look, I would like to do it this way because I feel those shape-offs can be subjective because it's an opinion. Somebody look at the board and go, oh, this one's better than that one. This one wins. That's bullshit. You are there on your own ticket. You pay for a hotel. If you have a booth and boards and clothing, you got 30 grand out of your pocket into that booth. By the time that weekend's over, you got 35, 40 grand invested in that show as a board builder, if you're going to do it right. So you want, the deal is to copy a board. Let's copy a board. Let's measure it. Let's check the rail. Let's put a deck and bottom rocker on it. Let's give anybody who steps in the room for an hour and a half the best judging we can. And Pat agreed. And man, I felt we did that. Nobody could grumble.
Yeah.
Because I measured, I had points that I hit on every board. Every board was measured the same way. And there was nothing subjective about it. So I felt really honored to be able to do that. Then when Bing got in, Matt Calvani asked me if I would be the head judge. And I said, I'm honored, but no, I want in this because Bing was very influential on me in my early career. And I don't know if I ever told you the story.
No, but it's in my notes. I was going to ask you if you remember the first time you met him.
Yeah. Actually, I had built some boards. I'd probably built 20, 30 boards. They were really bad prior to 1971. And I was getting ready to shoot out of here for the North Shore. And my friend Gary Terrell, who I grew up with, he was a photographer for Surfing magazine in the 70s. Well, he was friends with Mike Eaton. And I was glassing my own boards at the time. He goes, you know what, just call down to Bing and Mike will shape you a board and you can take it and glass it. And the funny part is it's right across the street from Mangelia's. So 50 years later, I was working across the street from, actually 51 years later, 52 years later, working right across the street from where that happened on Cypress Avenue.
Wow.
And so I walked in, and at that time, everything was slowing down for the big name guys. There wasn't a lot of work going through the factory. I walked in, there was Bing Copeland sitting at his desk. I go, I'm here for a shaping appointment. He goes, well, I'll shape it for you. What do you want to do? And I didn't care. I didn't care about the board. I wanted the procedure because I knew how to work with tools. I just didn't know how to work the tools. Mm-hmm. There was no social media. You couldn't turn on YouTube and, oh, that's how you use a planer. Okay. So I just pulled the board out of the rack. I believe it was a Maui foil. Yeah. And he went to work on it, and I was just amazed. And he was so kind to me. He didn't take it like, you were really wasting my time, kid. I didn't ask a lot of questions. That's why when people watch me, I just ask them, you know what? It's quiet time. Because I go into a place where I'm working. You want to watch, take notes, film, have at it. But we're not going to discuss until after we're done. And he was really, really a bitching guy. And when I was shaping in the first boardroom show that I was in, the tribute to Ben Ipa, Bing Copeland, I actually have a picture of him peering into the window watching because I was shaping against Matt Calvani, who I just absolutely adore. Matt Calvani is one of the greatest shapers ever and a gentleman.
Totally.
And so I had to walk out to feel the board, and Bing follows me over. And I always call him Mr. Copeland. I refuse to call him Bing. And Randy and I were at his 80th birthday some years back, and I always called him Mr. Copeland. Oh, Mr. Copeland was my dad. And I go, no. That's called respect. So I'm feeling the board, and I look, how you doing, Mr. Copeland? He goes, I'm doing good. I go, I got to go. I shoot back in the room. And I always loved that story because it was just part of real life that all these years later, here we are again. And so one of the museums, I think it was Oceanside, honored Bing Copeland this last year, and they wanted 4 boards, and they picked myself, Matt Calvani, Jim Phillips, and Wayne Rich, and we built a board that was significant in our career, tribute to Bing Copeland, and I built that board.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maui foil?
Maui foil. I built that board. And I did the same shitty glass job I did on it in 71. I did some acid splash crap.
I mean, where's that board today?
I think they might have auctioned it.
No, the original one.
Oh, God. If I had the first 1,000 boards I owned in my lifetime, I've been surfing 58 years. If I had the first 1,000 boards, I would be crapping in tall cotton.
It's interesting to think about. Like, did you just need the money and so you sold it so you can get a new one?
You always just trade it up, you know? You just kind of, somebody would want to ride it. Hey, I'll buy it. I think, okay, it was just
totally
turning dollars. I mean, it was...
I mean, I never shaped surfboards, but I did the exact same thing up until the last 10 years, you know?
And actually, if you think of it, it's genius because, well, I didn't think of it genius at the time, but you're getting product out there.
Yep.
And you get to ride the product before you get rid of it. And so you can go to the next one and do what you feel needs to be different. Totally. When I look at somebody's surfboard and ask, I never ask them what they like about it. I don't care what they like about it. I want to know what they don't like about it. Because then I can work the bugs out from there.
Right. all of this, you telling that story reminds me or makes me think, I don't even know where you grew up. Or if we ever discussed it, I've forgotten about it now.
I was raised by wolves.
In the Bolsa Chica wetlands?
Oh, God. That was called Tin Can Beach, you know. There was never a state park there when I started surfing there.
So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Paramount.
Okay.
And I shot out of here early for Hawaii.
What did your parents do in Paramount?
Man, they gave me a lot of grief, me and my brothers.
Is Paramount related to the movie studio? Is that why Paramount was?
Actually, it was a pretty okay place to grow up because there was a lot of dairy farms back then. Mm. And I think the Dutch has that architecture, really cool architecture, a lot of the houses, but I don't know what it's like now. I'm sure it's not user-friendly.
Yeah, I don't. I couldn't even tell you where it is on the map. I kind of think it's that way, like by Downey, something.
Lakewood, Downey.
Okay.
Yeah, all that area.
So what did your parents do for work? Were they dairy farmers? Were they Dutch architects?
Why are we talking about those people?
Gives me a better understanding.
You don't need to know. I was raised by wolves.
What did they expect of you? What did they want you to become?
They thought I was a surf bum.
Yep.
I got thrown out of the house when I was 14. I had longer hair than normal, and I had a brother that was my oldest brother who was surfing in the 60s, and then he got shot off for Vietnam, and he was a surf bum, and everybody was a surf bum. In that era, everybody wanted you to grow up and do what they did, instead of being a free spirit. And I just chose the free spirit thing. It was when I first got to Hawaii, Vietnam was breathing down my neck because the draft was still on.
Yeah,
and that's what I think put a lot of character in me, because I grew up watching people I grew up with not come back from the war, and that really puts an impact on you as far as this shit's real. And it's no different today. People lose family members all the time overseas.
I think that was a different. I think it was. I mean,
yeah.
Who am I to say? You know, but I think the way that I hear people talk about that time, it feels different than today. Yeah. I feel like I have certain protections and liberties as a youth, young male, that you probably didn't.
I think there was a lot of protesting going on in the late 60s that would be going on right now if anybody had a pair of balls, because why the fuck are we paying $7 a gallon for gas?
Yeah.
I was just in Hawaii, and it's $2 a gallon cheaper over there.
Crazy. Dude, a different county is $1 cheaper.
This is a shit show, and I don't understand why we're all sitting here so calm, just going, all right, may I have another gallon, please? Right. It's like, nobody cares.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Well, so back to your youth.
That.
It's
I left that behind.
Good. You tried really hard to segue past this. But I asked that question a lot of times of people who grew up in a different era than I did about like what your parents' expectations were for you. And I think you kind of nailed it, which was, it was before the Spicoli stereotype, but it's why Spicoli became a stereotype is surfers were burnouts.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's interesting to think like, I don't know. It's just interesting to think in those terms because things have changed so much. Whenever you hear anybody talking about surfers nowadays on the WCT or anywhere, they're athletes. Yeah. They don't refer to surfers anymore. It's like athletes, and they're much more, you know, there's not only physical workouts that are associated with becoming that athlete, but there's sports psychologists that are there to kind of nurture you along the way. It's just such an entirely different thing. Like a surfer now is a respectable thing. And, you know, it wasn't always. And so I think it breeded a different type of human being back then too. Like you became more of a character. There was a lot more color in the surfers back then. There
was a lot of freedom in the 60s and 70s. Just a lot of freedom. It seemed like later on everybody got really uptight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, how did you discover surfing then?
My brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where were you surfing?
Well, the first time I ever surfed was at Newport Pier at Blackie's. I don't know if it was called Blackie's then.
Okay.
And that was when I was 10 years old. And I didn't really surf, I drug a big-ass board down to the beach and got throttled.
Do you remember what board it was?
Yeah, I do. And actually, we've been over this. And it was a Harbor Banana that I paid $25 for from a guy who lived in town, Alan Zamboni, whose father or grandfather invented the Zamboni ice machine.
Yep. I do remember this now that you say it. That's a crazy story, by the way.
Yeah.
He should have come up with a different name. Well, I mean, that's a wacky name. I mean, it works, actually. Maybe I'm entirely wrong, but if your name was Zamboni, you would never think that you would lead with that as the brand. Call it Alan's Ice Machine.
Alan's Ice Machine.
You know what I mean? But I could be wrong because Zamboni is memorable.
You know, there was surfers were looked down on a lot by law enforcement. You know, we weren't bums. I think there was more bum surfers in the 70s than there was in the 60s. In the 60s, everybody was kind of clean cut, and in the 70s, I think,
it's part of the hippie movement. Part of
got a little weird, but I was out on the North Shore that whole time, to where it was kind of like your own little planet.
What was your what inspired your first trip to Hawaii?
I wanted to surf warm water and surf waves. I'd see it in the magazines, you know. I'd have pictures of Jerry Lopez, Armstrong, and everybody who's my friends now on the wall. It was kind of like a vision board, to lack of a better term, is that these people, you know, we're friends now. And it's ironic that.
Well, you've been friends for longer than you idolized them originally.
Exactly, yeah.
What year was that first trip?
71.
How much money did you have to save to go?
$1,000.
Oh, my gosh.
I was there for 6 months.
That's a lot of money. Did you work while you were there?
No, a little bit. Sanding some boards, you know, doing just odds and ends. It really didn't take any money to live on the North Shore back then, because we camped. The first time there, I camped out at Point, and so it was nothing.
Okay.
You'd whatever you bought for food and cook it. We had a little stove. It was really kind of roughing it, but you're a kid, man. You're on the North Shore. What do you need? What do you need?
Boards.
Well, I had one board. I actually made myself a board to go there with, and right away, the first time I paddled out of Haleiwa, I realized that I would die really quick if I continued with this board. So I went into Country Surfboards, and there was a beautiful blue Jim Turner surfboard. I forget the size. I'm thinking 7/8.
Okay.
And
7/8 quad fin made of EPS.
Single fin. It just had the S bottom. It was 1970, 71. And I rode the wheels off that damn thing. But the funny thing is, I became really good friends later on in life with Jim Turner.
Yeah. I mean, it's a small world. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, the surf world specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, each of your stories today has been like, it's crazy how started out this way and then you end up being friends, and it's like, oh, it's because there's 42 people in the surf world.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that size, huh? No, but it was a good time to be a surfer.
Yeah.
For sure.
So let's paint more of the picture. Living in Paramount, save up $1,000, doing what?
Loading catering trucks. Because I was living at a friend's house because I had been evacuated from my house.
Right.
And so I've always been a hard worker. And that's why I attribute my success to surfboards. Through my whole career, everybody has always said, not everybody, some people have said, well, you know, we do it for the love, not for the money. Well, that's horseshit. You don't stand on your feet for 10, 12 hours a day for love. You do it for freaking money. You want to do a good job at it.
Yeah.
And through my career, I was able to buy a house at the beach and pay it off. And that comes from hard work. So I've always been a hard worker. And even at this age now, I still work too hard. And I don't want to work this hard. Dennis Choate thinks I'm a nut. He's trying to slow me down, which I'm trying to.
It's in your DNA, though, you know.
Yeah, because I was on my own at such a young age that You either eat or you don't eat. So what do you want to do?
So you were loading catering trucks. Was the goal to just get to Hawaii?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That board that you brought with you, did you build it here and bring it with you?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I looked at a picture in the magazine of a board that Jerry Lopez was riding at sunset. It was a pintail. It was kind of a magenta color. It was before the lightning bolt. And I thought, what a beautiful plan shape. So I tried to copy that, which I failed miserably at. And quite frankly, I say to this day that after I got going, I could shape a symmetrical board and it would look pretty much like everybody else's, but I really didn't know how to get to the next step until after about 5,000 boards. After about 5,000, I realized, all right, if you do this, this will happen.
It just took so long because you were doing it in isolation? Like I would imagine those experiences with Bing would get you ahead 500 boards, right?
That was one board that I watched him shape, and it probably took him an hour at best. I don't remember exactly, but he was very skilled with the planer.
But what you gleaned from that experience would have taken you 500 boards to figure out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But one thing I did was I got started glassing over there earlier on in Hawaii so I could look at people's boards, and I could see how they would surf those boards. And then I would look at the board and go, oh, okay, that's why that does this.
Yeah. Back to those early Hawaii days. You mentioned Haleiwa. Was that the first spot that you surfed?
That was the first place I surfed.
How big was it?
It wasn't life and death. It was probably, like maybe head high, 2-3 feet overhead.
Okay.
Everybody was really, not me, everybody was fit in the 70s because there was no leashes.
Yeah.
And you swam. I mean, we were swimmers. So everybody was fit. So really, you were pretty ready for whatever came at you, except for the really open ocean stuff.
Yeah.
But Haleiwa was the first place I surfed, and I really liked that wave. It was fun.
Tell me more about that experience, that 6 months that you were there. Did you document it through diary or photos? Do you have photos of that time or any of that?
No. I had photos. They, through 50 years, they just end up somewhere else. I don't know. No, it's all up here.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It was Jerry's Sweet Shop was still across the street over there, which was a local hangout, and you could get really affordable food over there, but you really wanted to kind of stay away from there after dark.
Okay.
Yeah, I just flew under the radar. I didn't make a deal. I just acted like I wasn't there.
Do you remember any surfing that you witnessed that was kind of mind-blowing?
Yeah, the first time I went out at sunset, that first time there, I just kind of moseyed out and sat in the channel and watched mountains go by, and I watched everybody who was famous out there just surfing their brains out, and I got, this is amazing.
Who was it back at that time?
I remember Hawk was out there for sure, Sam, James Jones, Reno. There was a whole, it was a whole list of everybody because it was early in the year and everybody hadn't gotten there for the contest. But then there wasn't a whole bunch of contests back then, you know. The Duke, Smirnoff. And that was the first Pipeline Masters, which was called the Hawaiian Masters. The first Pipeline Masters was not the Pipeline Masters, it was the Hawaiian Masters.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Did you eventually, on that session, paddle in and try to catch a wave?
Yeah, I snuck in there. I poached a couple, but I got mowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you riding the Jim Turner yet?
I was. That's all I rode that whole first time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I rode. Like I said, after the first day, I scrapped that board. I just go, this is no good.
Yeah. Why in the world would you move back? I mean, I just think of that era. Obviously, it's with the benefit of hindsight, but it just feels like that was the time, you know?
I don't know. I felt like my time was up and it was time to go.
You were out of the $1,000 maybe?
Yeah. I can't pinpoint what it was. It was just time to go.
Okay.
But then I went right back the next year.
Okay. So when you came back to California, what did you do for money?
I made a few surfboards because by then I was okay at it. One of my friends I grew up with in Paramount. His name was Bob Webb. He had a really good following, underground following, that he was building boards, and so I was glassing his boards.
Okay.
I started out more as a glasser than a shaper. I glassed a lot of boards before I actually felt comfortable riding my own boards. I saw Michel Genode 4 or 5 months ago. He was over at Mangelli's. He comes down and shapes some boards, and Mangelli glasses them. But Michel shaped my Sunset boards and my boards for Waimea, and then Bill Barnfield shaped my pipeliners.
Okay.
Yeah. I've always, even through my whole career, if I didn't know something, I went to the guy who did.
Yeah.
Even today, if I don't know something, I'm going to the guy who knows.
When was the last time you didn't know something as it relates to board building?
A lot, every day.
Really?
Yeah. This whole surfboard thing, I think that's where people fail miserably, is they think they're there. And even though the amount of boards that I've done, I still think there's still more to learn. I've actually learned how to polish really well after my first trip to France. Pierre, who is the polisher there at UWL, he invited me in to let me watch him polish, and I was totally blown away. He came from the boat industry, and the polishes were perfect. And I was no slouch. I mean, I had the Ultimate Craftsman board that looked like glass, but it was it got easier because I used a different technique. I used the technique that the automotive industry uses, or the boat industry, not the surfboard industry. The surfboard industry is so archaic. We're still using the #2 polish from Surf Supply that I don't even know what the hell that stuff is. But people are doing good polishes with it, so good on them.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. I mean, you're right, though. I could see what you're saying, where even if you've been doing something for 50 years, if you were only doing it your way, it might not be the best way. And just kind of seeing it through somebody else's perspective could unlock a better way.
And that's what I really enjoyed about my time traveling around the world shaping and glassing, was I got to watch people in Brazil, Italy, everywhere, who did really good work that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
But when you get in that slot, in that lane, I call it, that this is the way I do it and this is the way I'm going to do it, and if you don't do it this way, it's too bad. Well, then you're not going to really get better at it.
Right.
I want to do a better polish next week than I did today.
Yeah.
Why bother? Why bother if you're not going to try to do better? And you can't expect to charge money for a surfboard that looks like everybody else's. There has to be something different. Why is your board more expensive than Shecky Gomez over here? Well, because this is what I do, and this is what it looks like. I don't know.
One of the things that's changed since last time we spoke in 2021 is your partnership with SurfTech.
Yeah, I actually, we got that going about 2 years ago. It really, well, it was right towards, we got it going, and then COVID was the supply chain was pretty bad. And, but I'll tell you how that happened. I'm at the boardroom show, and Randy Rarick calls me on a Saturday night, and he goes, "We got a meeting with SurfTech tomorrow morning before the show." I go, "Okay." And him and I had done bear surf techs, and he'd done them for years. And Randy's always been a mentor to me, to, you know, and I really appreciated that. So we went there, and they had the meeting. I was just kind of looking around, and I kept grabbing these Lopez boards out of the rack and sticking them up in the lights, because that's what I do with a sand finish epoxy or a sand finish anything. First thing I do is I grab it, I stick it up in the light, so that if you see any weave, especially with an epoxy board, it's going to degrade pretty quick.
Okay.
So you really want to see no weave is really what you're looking for.
So meaning there's a layer of hot coat resin that's built up over the weave.
Over the fiberglass. If you're seeing the fiberglass on an epoxy laminated board, it's going to degrade pretty rapidly. Not overnight, but it's not going to last you a long time. And I was really impressed with these damn things. I was going, holy mackerel, these are really good glass jobs. And then they started talking to me about wanting to do my label, and I was kind of taken back, going, well, I thought we were doing bear. They go, no, we want to do for you, we want to do your label. And what I had in the booth was all color work, pigment, gloss polish, everything. And they asked if they could do the poly boards. And I thought about it long and hard because, you know, I haven't really beat the drum out loud, but everybody knows I do build it from start to finish. And really the reason I do it from start to finish is not that I'm so much better than everybody else, if at all. It's just that it gets done the way I want it.
Gotcha.
I don't have to ask questions why. It gets done the way I want it. So if I can only build 100 boards a year and they come out how I want them, that's all I'm building. And so what I agreed with them was I would shape a master and they would scan it, much like anybody, surfboard builder in the USA uses the Aku machine or whatever they are. And so they're machine shaped and they're basically copied what my prototype was. And the glass work, it's all EPS epoxy and it's really good. I'm really satisfied with the glass jobs. They're really good glass jobs. I mean, I wish that I could do a glass job that good, that consistently on epoxy.
So the question, I think, for listeners is like, was there any consternation for you about partnering with Surf Tech, given that your identity is built by one pair of hands, sorry.
Two pair of hands.
Two hands.
2 hands and 2 feet.
10 fingers. Like you're talking about the quality of the boards is good. I get that. It's the business model that the consumer has questions about, you know? And so being a domestic, homegrown, one pair of hands board builder and partnering with a outsourced manufacturer, was there any consternation about that part of the relationship?
I thought about it a lot. I made some phone calls. Believe me, I talked to a lot of important people in my life, and there was nothing negative about it because basically what came back to me was, what do you have to prove? Really, somebody's going to bite at you for having a board made overseas because what? Can they do what you do? So, yeah, I thought about it, but it was 66 at the time, and the boards didn't even roll out till a year and a half later. No, they do a really good job, and I'm getting a royalty. You know, at the end of the day, I've worked my ass off, man. I'm tired. And if somebody wants to pay me, as long as the quality is what I want, and there's clauses in the contract on both ends that if we're not happy with each other, then that's that. But they understand what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And they are by far the easiest people to work with ever. They really want to promote the brand and keep it at the high quality that I build it at.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time together. They were in Oceanside just filming. I'm building a board for Best in Show, a Bonzer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they filmed it, shaping and then the glassing and the color work and so on. So they were really involved with this whole thing, even though it wasn't even a Surf Tech. They wanted to be involved with it.
To help build the Roger Hinds brand.
Yeah, because I'm like the biggest backyard guy in America. I'm the David Hasselhoff of surfboards. I'm loved abroad and hated at home. I don't really have the exposure because I was behind the brand my whole career. I was either building somebody else's brand with my name on it, and so I really didn't get the exposure I don't think that people would get for the amount of boards that I've built.
Yeah. One of those people who has gotten the exposure is Jerry Lopez, and you talked about idolizing him and then becoming friends with him and his Surf Tech models that you were eyeing.
Yeah.
Did you have a conversation with him before partnering, and what were the insights that he gave you?
No, I didn't talk to Jerry, but I did look at all the boards that were there, but I did talk to Randy and Wayno and Matt Calvani. I mean, guys who've been in this business a lifetime, that Royce Kanzler, he's been my partner in crime for a lifetime. I talked to people who were important to me so that they could tell me if I was stepping off the edge of the earth or not.
Yeah. I mean, the question there is, does it damage or does it pose a potential threat to Roger Hinds surfboards?
No, because I only build 100 boards. I cut it off at that every year. So my footprint now with Surf Tech is worldwide. I used to be worldwide when I would travel to Japan and Shape and South America, but I don't do that anymore. So now these places are reached by these boards. And I've heard nothing but positive about them, how they hold up. And I have samples in the garage that I let people ride, and I'm really impressed with the way they hold up. They're very well constructed.
Have you ridden them, or do you ride them?
I've ridden the 2 Tough Light models I have. I can't ride the shorter boards that I have. I have five models with them, but most of them are shorter. And right now, I'm really uncomfortable unless I have a board that's about 8.6 under me. I can still surf pretty well, but I can't pop up like I used to.
Yeah.
And I have had a leg injury that I drag it behind me. So in order for me to ride a 8-foot board, that would be on my belly.
Yeah.
Which would still be cool.
Yeah.
It'd still be cool. I could get barreled.
One day it will come to that, I'm sure. Are there any board models or designs that you're working on now?
Yeah, actually, I ran into Mickey Munoz, and I was in Mexico with Dennis Choate. And Dennis suffers from the same thing I have, but he suffers it for 10 years longer than I have, age. And he's having trouble popping up. And so he was talking with Mickey, and Mickey told him, look, as you get older, you got to go wider. And that makes the board stable. So, and I have slight neuropathy in my feet to where sometimes I feel the board and a lot of times I don't. So I built this board. Most of the boards I ride are in between 8.6 and 9 feet, and they're a pointed nose board because I never nose rode, even when I surfed in the 60s. I never rode the nose, so I don't need a nose. So it just looks like from 100 yards away, it looks like a 7-foot gun, but it's actually a blown up board that was 22 3/4 wide. The one I rode at Scorpion Bay this last 5 times I was there in really good waves. They're quite thick, but I pull the rails way down. And so what the latest one I built, I opened it up 1 1/4 inches. So now the board is 24 1/4, which you would think is really going to be tough to ride. But absolutely, it's absolutely the opposite of that. It paddles in easy. You jump to your feet. You're very stable, and it's how you create the bottom contour, how the board just rolls over. I can turn that board as well as I could a board that was 22.5 inches wide.
Really?
Yeah. I think what's been lost is in surfboard building is everybody's just pigeonholed of, I got leaders and I got this much volume and I have to have this because this guy's riding this. Well, when you get my age and you're still a pretty competent surfer and you're not afraid of ways of consequence, you need a board that will actually work for you and not against you. And so now, really, I just sent Anthony, my webmaster, the copy of what the board is for the website, and I'm building the board this weekend for the picture for the website. But we named it, we went through a bunch of different names, but it had to revert back to what guys in the 50 and up who are still trying to ride boards that just do this under them and they can't, they get to their feet and the wave just runs off. You want a board you can get in early and just kind of set your rail and just go. We named it the Master, and it's going to be a good board for guys who can still surf, but you can't buy this board in a surf shop.
Yeah.
This thing does not exist in a surf shop.
Because it has to be custom? Because,
number one, I don't really sell to surf shops, and number two, nobody builds a board 24 inches wide.
Yeah.
Now, they're not all that wide. I would recommend that whatever you're riding, if you wanted to try this board, you would go 1 inch wider.
Gotcha. What category does it fit into? Would you call it a glider, maybe?
No, it's a shortboard. It has a
shortboard.
Has a shortboard rocker to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a shortboard, just a bigger shortboard. Again, I ride a bigger one. I'm building Trip Foreman at Real Water Sports one right now. It's 7.2. Bless you.
Excuse me.
7.2, and it's 23 inches wide, and it's 3 1/8 thick. But again, the thickness to me is inconsequential because the board I ride is 4 inches thick, but the rail is the same rail I would put on a board that's 2 3/4.
Totally.
So it just rolls right over.
So what length is the one you're riding?
The one I just made myself is an 810 because
Okay.
when I was at Scorpion Bay a couple weeks ago, I was riding a board that was 9.4 in the picture that you saw. But since I opened it up that inch, I brought the board down in size.
Gotcha. What fin setup?
I ride a 3-fin, 3 equal size.
Big fins?
No, 3 equal size shortboard fins.
But are they large?
They're the NVS fins I do. I think I don't know what size they
Okay.
are. But the way they should be set up is a 5-fin or a 3-fin.
Okay.
Because it has a wing. And that was the thing. What the board is my original Nomad from 92. But I opened it up, and I put a wing at the front fins. So it gives you that area to pick that wave up. I mean, this thing catches waves like stupid.
Mm.
And it's very stable, and it really... You start counting when you get in your late 60s, really, how many more years do I have of surfing? So you constantly have to reinvent yourself of how is this going to stay easy for me and not get more difficult than it already is.
I mean, look, if you're surfing Scorpion Bay and the waves are overhead, I would think a couple good waves a day is plenty. You know, like when the length of ride is that long,
Yeah.
it's like if you get 5 of those, you're psyched, right?
Yeah, I kind of overdo it. I try to
Do
get
ya?
I try to get more than that. Hey man, the clock's ticking. I got to get waves.
I guess so, but that's the way I'm saying is you can mitigate risk of injury. You can kind of mitigate the amount of energy that you're putting out if you just get a couple good
What
ones.
do I say? If you're not getting injured, you're taking off on the shoulder.
Yeah. Well, it's worked for you.
Every time. I got scars everywhere.
Well, that sounds like a great addition to the catalog then.
Yeah, it should be available on the website. The board not for sale, but at least for to look at within the next 2 weeks, I would think.
Okay.
Hopefully before boardroom.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take the one I'm building for Trip to boardroom.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I think it's going to open up a lot of area for people to really still enjoy surfing without riding a 10.6 longboard.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Warshaw, last time he was down here, he and I surfed together, and he showed up with a gun.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dude, what are you riding? You know, we were going to surf around here, and the waves were shoulder high.
Yeah.
He goes, honestly, this thing is, I get every wave I want. I can still turn it. And sure enough, the very first wave he got, he kind of ripped it.
What are you going to do at this age? You're not sticking the board straight up the face, and you're just
exactly.
You're trying to get from point A to point B and have a great time doing it.
But you want the board to respond when you want to get to point B, and the thing did.
And that's all bottom contours. You can make a board. Look at stand-up boards. Those damn things are, 30 inches wide? They turn those things like...
Well, so Mickey, he's talking about, when I talked to him at some point, he was talking about getting to his feet was the hard part, so that's why he started stand-up paddling. Yeah. It's like I get all the waves I want. I just don't have to worry about getting to my feet.
It's funny. Did you see the picture of me, Mickey, and Dennis?
Yeah.
Who's the most fit guy in that thing? It's damn Mickey. And he's 80s.
Did you surf
he did. He did stand up at First Point.
Amazing.
And he's like 86. Dennis is 77 or 78. I'm 68. And
sharp as a tack too.
Oh man, I love that guy.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, he's a good dude. A lot of miles behind that guy.
It's his size, I think, that's keeping him going. You know, like big dogs break down quicker, their bones. The big dogs you got to worry about, they're like, if they make it to 10, you're like, wow, that's a good run. Whereas little dogs, there's 14.
Well, there's 2 of them right
Exactly.
here. year.
Exactly. So Mickey's going to outlive everybody by 20 years.
I don't want him to. I want to be there with him. No, he's he drove up from East Cape, spent a few days in San Juanico, and he got some of the first swell. Yeah, we were there for the hurricane. That Category 5, what was the name of that damn thing?
I forget all the names.
It was right off the coast, like 200 miles out.
Yeah.
Had it made a right turn, it would have blew that town up.
That's what everybody was
It
worried
was a
about.
Category 5.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Has anybody ever seen a Category 5 down there?
I don't know. Maybe not make landfall.
Yeah, that's crazy. But we got the swell out of that, but the weather was pretty tough because it was, the humidity was 180% and air was 95 degrees and the water was 85 degrees. But I can't complain. I got a few waves. And then the groundswell came in, so I got some more waves there.
Yeah. Those elements take it out of you, though. I mean, honestly, it's harder to surf all day when it's that hot.
Yeah.
How old are you? I know you said
68.
it. 68. Okay. Ultimately, is a health and wellness related question or segment of the show, but ultimately, what will it be that prevents you from surfing as you age?
Nothing.
I mean,
I've gave up so much in my life.
will it be your
To be a
knees,
surfer?
your back? I mean,
Well,
let's say you live to 100.
well, yeah. I mean, people have problems popping up. I remember. Oh, this is a funny story. I was in Hawaii. It was a Clark Foam deal. Clark Foam had trouble with the guys in the warehouse sometime, I think it was in the 90s, I don't even remember. And Gordon sent a couple guys from Clark Foam over there to run the place, and he rented a house right in front of Ken Bradshaw right there. It was right next door to Flippy's house. And so Gordon said, I can tag along. I go, okay. So I tagged along. It was me, Jackson, I forget who else.
Jackson.
Remember Jackson?
No, I don't know
Jeff Jackson. He worked at Clark Foam, and another guy. So we went over there, and it wasn't giant. It was 6-8 feet, but it was really windy and blowing out most of the time we were there. But one day I was out on the veranda with Flippy, and he's smoking a joint. And he goes, "Go out there and entertain me." I said, what? So I paddled out at Cami Land and just got shit throttled because it was all blown out and big and just got beat. But this was before stand-ups. He would go out on his jet ski, and the jet ski was very archaic at the time. It was that real narrow one, and he'd go out to avalanche and just because he loved the drop, and he still wanted to do it, but he couldn't get to his feet.
So he would ride waves on it?
Yeah.
Oh
He
my
just couldn't
gosh.
get to his feet. And had stand-up been a thing at that time, he would have loved it.
Yeah, totally.
He would have loved it. But what I have trouble with is I've had 2 surgeries for melanoma, so that put me out of the water for 2 months. And when you're out of the water for 2 months, it's like starting over. You got to build all your core strength back up again. And because I couldn't exercise because I had stitches and all the other crap that goes with it. So it was like starting over. It was very difficult. That's what keeps you out of the water is not staying healthy. And as long as you can get your feet under you, I'm making boards now that I can surf, and hopefully it helps other people with their surfing. That I've always said I made a career out of watching people surf. I watch people surf, and I can tell that, Jesus, man, your board is like 2 feet too short. But you want to ride what Kelly Slater's riding. I get it, but you're 60 years old. That's why when you paddle into the wave, you get to your feet late and the wave has already ran off. And that's because you don't have enough board.
Yeah.
And it's basically image driven and social media and who's riding what, as opposed to what's practical for you. What is going to work for you with your, not handicaps, your
abilities.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a reflection of the surfer probably not having a conversation with the shaper.
Right.
Like you said, just seeing something and then going and buying what they think.
And would the shaper even know where to take them to?
Right.
Because maybe the shaper isn't in the same place I am physically.
Or doesn't have the time to actually devote talking to the client, you know?
What I could do when I was 58 and what I can do when I'm 68 is basically about 50% less.
Really?
That quick.
That's drastic.
At 58, I was still surfing Sunset. I would still surf it today because I can roll in and I can make that happen on a north. But if it's the west, I can't surf out there.
You just don't want to get cleaned up, too.
Yeah, I'm still a strong swimmer. I can hold my breath half hour. I'm really not worried about the consequence of all that. It's just you really got to pick the wave you can surf now.
Right.
Or I have to pick the wave. I am really questionable at a beach break, but at like Scorpion Bay, where I can roll in to where I read something where there's, and I don't know if this is true, but that there's a point of zero gravity when you surf a wave. If a wave is hollow enough, when you paddle into the wave, the board drops out from under you and you get to your feet and there's a point of zero gravity. And I'll tell you, at that wave, I can get to my feet like I'm 20 years old again.
Really?
But at San Onofre or somewhere like that where the wave is real slopey, it's really tough.
I mean, it could be to do with the 85-degree water, too.
Yeah, and
You're limbered up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of moving parts there that's why I like surfing warm water. But I pick the waves I surf now.
Yeah.
I really do.
Is there anything that you would have done over the last 30 to 50 years differently in terms of diet or exercise?
Yeah, I would have done a lot of stretching, which I never did, ever, until probably 2 years ago. Or during COVID, I started stretching because I was bored as hell.
Core.
Say again?
Core.
The core strength is what surfers need. I used to do open ocean paddling. I have friends that paddle boards, but surfing is totally different than paddling a paddleboard.
Yeah.
It's core strength, and I mean, it's right here that you can pop up or you can't. And the pop up is everything on a wave.
So are you doing core exercises now?
I am. I stretch every day, and I do a lot of push-ups, a lot of planking, just basic stuff.
Basic body weight stuff. Like
That's
you don't
all it
have to have a
is.
gym membership.
You use a chair and
Yeah.
yeah, it's nothing. You just got to keep yourself moving. That's what I would have done different as far as the stretching. As far as health-wise, I've always ate pretty healthy.
Okay.
I've never been the cheeseburger guy.
You were really missing out, man.
I know.
Cheeseburgers are so
I
good.
know, right?
If I could have encouraged you to do something differently over the last 30
Right?
years, it would have been eat more cheeseburgers.
Man. When I get Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine, I'm heading to Burger King. Remember Mr. Peabody? That's too old. Yes, you're too young for that.
It's a name that I recognize. I don't know what you're talking about, but
It's a cartoon.
in terms of looking back, things that you might have done differently, is there anything that you might have done differently for your business?
You know, I was my own worst enemy because I really wanted to create a board or build boards that my peers would look at and just go, yeah. Not so much the public. I don't know that the public even back then was educated on the difference between a good cut lap and a shitty cut lap. There's a big difference.
Yeah, a lot of them still aren't.
Yeah, exactly. I worked really hard. I worked a lot of hours. I worked 1.5 years in a year's time for a lot of years. Yeah, I gave up a lot of things in my life because of surfing and surfboards. They were the most important thing in my life.
So what would you have done differently? Work less?
Worked less, spent time with people you care about, but maybe next life it'll work out different. I don't know that I would, in this mind and in this body, I couldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah.
Because that's who I am. That's how I'm wired. Even to this day, I want it the best it can be, or it fucking stays in the factory. I don't want it out there.
If you could buy any surfboard from anybody, what would you get?
Wow, what a great question. Huh. What would I get? A new board or one from the past?
I don't know, like just if you're scrolling Instagram or whatever, or maybe at the boardroom show, like, is there anything that really appeals to you that you're just like, holy shit, that's interesting. I would like to try that.
Are you asking me who I consider the best board builder for a company? If that's the question, I would say Bing Surfboards. Matt Calvani and Margaret have built an empire of quality surfboards that they could put up against anybody's. And I mean, they have the guys in-house who do all the glassing. They've done it for a lot of years. They have a rhythm. They do it the same every time. You get the same color every time. If you walk into Bing tomorrow and said, I want that board that's right there, but I want it 3 inches shorter, it'll look just like that board. Mm. That's how their quality is. Yeah, I consider their boards at the highest level because it's all in-house. And so if it's in-house, you can control it better than, say, if you're shaping boards like another brand and sending them out to a glass shop. Yeah. Because to go back to what we talked about an hour ago, people are underpaid.
Yeah.
You know, something goes wrong in the lamination, the hot coater's not going to fix it.
Yeah.
Something goes wrong in the hot coat, sander's not going to fix it. So they have a QC guy at the end, and at the end, it's really hard to fix shit.
Totally.
You want to fix it as it goes is the best way to do it. And when you have an environment like Bing, then you can control that. You can control it. You can't control it. And it's not, I'm not saying any other glass shop is doing bad work. I'm just saying that as a businessman, if I was doing the amount of boards that Bing is doing, that's the business model I would follow.
Yeah.
And it is a business model. And you'd be surprised how many people in this business that don't have a business model.
No, I know.
And I have a business model. I know how much it costs me to build a board. I know how much money I want to make on a board. And I know how much it costs me to buy fuel to go down there and build that board. It's called a business model.
Yeah. But they've cracked the code on that, on like being able to kind of scale up.
Yep.
And still maintain that same level of quality.
It's the highest.
Yeah.
The highest, yeah.
Totally. How often do you ride other shapers' surfboards?
Anytime a lot when I was younger. When I was younger and I could ride smaller boards, I would actually pay shapers to shape me a board. That I would say, this is what I'm riding. Give me your idea of this. Mm. But now the boards I ride, I don't think much shapers are going to come after that.
Yeah.
You know, the boards I ride are pretty big now.
Yeah.
But I always enjoyed that because I wanted to see what it felt like under my feet, somebody else's boards.
Totally.
Yeah.
That'd be informative. What was the last surfboard that you rode?
The one at Scorpion Bay?
The Master? No,
it was a California Gold. It was a round pin in the picture that you saw of Scorpion. It was a 9.3. All my boards are kind of the same. Width, thickness, everything. I changed little things just to see what's different in the next one. I build myself a lot of boards. You'd be surprised. Mm. Well, after COVID, I was out of the water for a long time with injuries. And I probably built myself a board every 2 weeks, trying to recapture that, okay, I got to pop up to my feet. I can't get there. So I built a thicker one, a wider one. Couldn't get there because I was just so out of shape. I weighed probably 35 more pounds than I do right now because I think everybody had that problem during COVID for one reason or another. But I had an injury. And so I ended up taking these boards to Sinaloa. They were big boards, and they were poly. And they got lost. They were supposed to go to Mazatlan. They went to Manzanillo. I thought, all right, I'll just go out to the surf camp and hang out and body surf or whatever. I don't care. So I got out there, and there was a board that I had left there. Every time I leave a surf spot, I leave a board with the people who work there. So, you know, kind of helps them out. They could either sell it for some money or whatever. So I left this board, and it was an EPS board. is one of the parabolic boards I used to build, 1 pound EPS. And it was quite small compared to the ones I actually shipped down there to surf. And so one of the guys goes, go look in the garage, see if you can find a board. So I went in, there was my old board. So I just grabbed it and paddled out, and I spun around and took off on a wave and popped right up. So what happens with EPS, and that was a light bulb moment. From that day on, all I ride is EPS. And here's why. An EPS board, when you push down on it, it pushes back. It's like a trampoline. I can't do that with a poly. I can't push down on a poly because it stays down. So I push down on the EPS, fires me right up. Off I go. But the trick with the EPS board is, and I think a lot of people may fail at this, is if you're riding a polyurethane board and it's 3 inches thick and the rail is this tall, but you want an EPS board, that's fine, make it 3 inches thick, but now the rail's got to be this tall because you have more float. And so when you turn a thicker rail board, you'll actually feel it push back on you. That's why I say I'm riding a board right now that's 4 inches thick, but the rail looks like that.
Interesting.
And that's really one of the reasons a lot of people don't like EPS and epoxy. They feel too corky and too chattery. Well, that's because the rails are like that.
So you could shape it down to accommodate for the corkiness.
Of course.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, you're not going to make the same board for yourself out of EPS as you would for a poly.
Right.
It's going to ride too thick, too clunky, and it'll push back on you.
Well, I've heard people talking about layering in different types of cloth or whatever to try to dampen some of that corkiness, like basically laminating the board differently to dampen the corkiness. But I've never heard anybody talk about shaping it differently.
Yeah, I mean, what are you getting rid of corkiness by laminating layers? The corkiness is in the EPS. It's in the shape. It's not in the glassing.
Right.
But I use a glassing schedule on my EPS. It's probably different than most. I use warp glass, and I use multiple layers because on warp glass, on a roll of fiberglass, the warp direction is nose to tail on a surfboard. The fill direction is across. So in fiberglass terms, warp glass would be 5 more strands per inch. They take strands out of the fill direction and add them back in the warp direction. Okay. So you have more strands from tip to tail with warp glass. So I'm a big fan of that on clear boards more than resin color boards. But on my EPS, what I ride is 2 layers of 4 ounce on the bottom and 3 layers of 4 ounce on the deck, because 3 layers of 4 ounce is about 40% stronger than 2 layers of 6 ounce. It's
the nature of laminate.
It's layered. Yeah. And so we're not sending monkeys to the moon here, man. We're building surfboards, and all it does is take a little thought that, okay, how can I make that stronger and keep it light?
Yeah. And 3 layers. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Final question.
What?
Sorry. Got to get back to the family.
You got kids.
Final question is, who's going to win the Icons of Foam at the Boardroom Show next weekend?
Well, I'll tell you what. I hope that Wayne Rich wins it, because he had a lot of teaching from Danny Bendixson and Wayne Land, who shaped for Bing in the 60s. Because in that Pollard Valley is what they used to call it, that Wayne cut his teeth in there. And I love Wayne. I would love to see him win. But I called Wayne the other day and told him so. I heard that he was, I'm kind of jittery. And that's Wayne. He's a fighter, man. He wants to come in this thing. He wants to win. And I called him and said, hey, man, you're probably going to win, but you and I are going to roll around on the asphalt before you do. And there's a lot of good shapers in this. There is. But
who you matched up against in round 1?
A guy from San Diego. I apologize. Osprey Surfboards. I've never met I've never met him. I've heard great things about him. I met Josh Peterson in Hawaii, who was the winner from Florida from Ricky Carroll's deal.
Yep.
And I know Michael Arnold, but I've never seen these guys shape in the room.
Dane Purley, right?
Yeah. I mean, Matt handpicked these guys. I'm sure they're coming ready.
So if you end up in the final with Wayne Rich, I don't know how it's stacked, but
I'll beat him like a $3 pinata.
I'll be there to catch the candy that falls out.
It's going to be good.
All right. I'm just making sure you're not going to throw the final. You just said you want him to win.
All I can do. No, if anybody could win, I would love to see Wayno win it. But I'm not going to hand it off, and I don't think anybody else is either. He's up against Hank, first round.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I appreciate what you were talking about, making the judging more objective, and it is fun to have competition. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's a great little get-together. It's just a celebration, Yeah,
let's not forget we're going there to honor Bing Copeland, who really has a giant footprint on this planet in surfboards and as being a gentleman. And
I mean, inextricable. Like, you couldn't pull out the weave of him in the tapestry. Like, it's just part of it.
I'm just grateful to be part of it, to celebrate this with Mr. Copeland and the Calvani family and everybody. And you know what? I got sharp blades. That's all I can tell you.
Sweet. I'll see you there. Let's transition. Once we're there, put the Pinot away. Let's do some martinis.
All right, pal.
Get you greased up before
Jesus. You go. Oh, yeah. That's all I need is a jug of martinis.
Yeah. If you're buying them by the jug, that's a bad idea.
Good Lord.
All right. Well, thanks for chatting.
Thanks. Good seeing you again.
All right. You too.